So today's gospel story is one of those Jesus stories that I love visiting again and again. And one reason is I like the stories that it provides a vivid picture how to live a free, life-giving life in the midst of an atmosphere of darkness and fear. How to live a life-giving life in the midst of darkness and fear. We see Jesus going about the business of being a loving, hope-filled presence in the midst of the critical, disapproving eyes of the religious establishment. As I read this story today, I was envisioning Jesus sitting in the village market area. It's a sunny day, and as I sat with this scripture, this passage, I pictured him under a large tree that's situated in the middle of the village. And there are all sorts of people that seem to just flock to Jesus. This is the picture that I get in my mind as I hear this story being read. They're coming to Jesus to sit around him, to lean over the group, to hear what he has to say. They apparently like his vibe. He's approachable. There's a gentleness about him. And no doubt, the folks that have gathered appreciate that he listens to their stories without judgment. This is a scene of peace, joy. No one is anxious. Even Jesus, who knows that the folks are out there just along walking through the area, kind of casting judgment on him, talking about him behind his back. Folks whom society view as respectable types are walking past, and it's almost like they cast a dark shadow upon this happy group. These are the high society, high status folks, where they're the ones that don't want their paths to intersect with characters like the ones that are hanging out with Jesus. So while Jesus is enjoying the company of the outcast of society, this high status group is looking down on them, whispering derogatory things about them. But the folks gathered around Jesus feel safe. Jesus has provided a welcoming presence for them. They have found a place to belong. And then there are the devout religious Pharisees, religious folks who you would think would be welcoming. They're the experts of the religious law, but they act just like the high society folks. They too are snubbing Jesus and his company. They are all bent out of shape, seeing Jesus with people whose lifestyles offend them. They don't like it that Jesus has a pattern of hanging out with the folks they see as sinners. And to make matters worse, Jesus doesn't just talk and listen to them. Jesus enjoys a meal with them. Jesus is not oblivious to the criticism spoken behind his back. In fact, he just responds to what he overhears by telling a story. If you had to care for 100 sheep and one of them got lost, what would you do? Well, like anyone else, you would leave the other 99 grazing in the fenced-in pasture and go off looking for the lost one until you found it. And then when you found it, you would be so relieved that you would hoist it up on your shoulders and dance all the way home with a spring in your step. Not only that, you would call out to all your friends and neighbors and say, come and have a party. Come party with me. Let's celebrate. I have found my sheep that was lost. It's just the same in heaven. Scripture says when one person who has slipped through the cracks, one person who is not welcome to the party, who feels left out, going through bad times in life, when they're not welcome to the table, but finally somebody says, come be with us. And when they find a place to belong, the Creator and all of heaven rejoices. Preacher theologian Howard Thurman explains this parable from the sheep's perspective. A sheep was enjoying his grass, and then when he started feeling chilly, he didn't recall, but the only thing that he remembers is that suddenly he became aware that he was cold. And there was a thought in his mind, and he realized that he had been cold for some time, but the grass was really good. And then he looked around and he discovered that he was alone, that everybody had gone. That is, that all the sheep had gone. And he began to cry aloud, "Bah, bah." And then the shepherd, who had many, many, many sheep, missed him when he got back to the fold, and he left his 99 and he tried to find that one sheep that was lost. And Jesus said, God is like that. Thurman goes on to say that there's nothing heavy and theological about that, very little that is dogmatic, technical about that, just that there is a shepherd who loves his sheep. And one of the sheep, in doing the most natural thing in the world, that is to eat grass, did it with such enthusiasm, and over a period of time, he didn't know how long, but over time, when the shepherd called everybody to come home, this one sheep was lost. And why was he lost? He was lost because he was out of touch with the group that sustained him, the group that fed him. He was away from the group that gave him a sense that he counted, that he mattered. That's all. And as soon as he was out there alone, he said, "I'm just out here by myself. Nothing but me in all of this. And I want to feel that I count with others." There's a certain warmth to that. There's a certain something, Howard Thurman says, that is creative and redemptive about the sense and the need of community, about fellowship. My friends, there's pain in separation from community. There's desolation in being isolated, disconnected from community. And Thurman goes on to explain that sometimes those out of connection with community are insulated because they have pulled up the drawbridge, because they are afraid or feel clumsy and awkward, and they don't quite know how to establish a relationship or relationships with others. But Jesus says God is like the shepherd, seeking always to find those who are out of community. And when the isolated and the insulated and the desolate soul is brought back into community once more, oh, the joy there is. Because now the world seems to be right once more. Some of you have read the Book of Joy. You know, that book that's a conversation between the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And I must tell you, it's on TV somewhere too, so you can watch it there. Watch their conversation in action. But at one point in this conversation that they have about joy, the Archbishop explains that in African villages, when you come to the village and you actually greet one another with, "How are we?" Not "how are you," but "how are we?" And this is understanding that someone else's achievements or someone else's happiness is in a very real way our own. So rejoicing in others' good fortune really brings us a lot of positive benefits. When I reflect back on my mind's eye picture of the scene of Jesus under this tree with a whole mix of folks around him, and then I see in my mind's eye the pious religious folks skirting the group, I see a picture of joy with sadness on the fringe. And so really this morning, we heard the story of the lost sheep, the story of the lost coin, which I'm not going to go into, but there's another story of lostness here. It's the story of those insidious lost who think that they are righteous and upholding the values of society and faith. The complainers believe that they are the ones who are good citizens. They are the faithful churchgoers, the morality police. But they lack grace and forgiveness. Their hearts have closed down to folks who are isolated and insulated, and in doing so, they have closed their hearts to God. You know, sometimes, often, when I'm working on my sermon, I am listening to some music. So this week, I asked Alexa to play John Baptiste's new song. I think it's called Sweet or something. And I was like, oh, play that, Alexa. And sure enough, as soon as it's over, you know, she adds more to my list, you know, and on it goes. And it's in the background. I don't hear it too much until I heard David Bowie singing over and over again about love. It was like love, 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 and I'm like, oh, that's what I'm talking about. Let me listen to that song more closely. Now, I don't claim to remember lyrics or even recognize songs when I hear them. I just like the melody, perhaps. And then when I know the lyrics, I'm all happy. So I stopped and I listened. And so this song, you probably already know what song I'm going to talk about. It's the song Under Pressure. I'll try not to sing it to you. So we are all under pressure. You know, this song was written quite a while ago, and I guess in my heart, I just keep hoping that someday we won't be under pressure in this world, but it seems like we're even more so under pressure. And as the song goes, it's the terror of knowing what this world is about, watching some good friends screaming, "Let me out." Pray tomorrow gets me higher, higher. Pressure on people, pressure on streets. Can't we give ourselves one more chance? Why can't we give love that one more chance? Why can't we give love, give love, give love, 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 give love, love, love? Because love's such an old-fashioned word, and love dares you to care for the people on the edge of the night. And love dares you to care, love dares us to change our way of caring about ourselves. That's what Jesus is doing in this story. I don't know if David Bowie read the story, but this is good stuff. Caring for the people on the edge of night. And when we do that, it brings Jesus joy. And as Howard Thurman suggested and Desmond Tutu, it will bring all of us joy. Our world needs joy. And it seems that the reckless love that Jesus freely shared will bring about joy to folks on the margins. It's our kind of joy that we need to bring to the world, reaching out to those on the edge of night, having them come into a place where they feel they belong. And in the end, we too will experience joy.